Now, King Sargon II was the king of Assyria in 722 BC. King Sargon boasted in his own writings that we have as historical documents that he took 27,290 inhabitants of the city of Samaria. That was Israel, or the northern kingdom's capital, in 722 BC. Now, Sargon was not a pleasant person. He besieged the city 3 years. 3 years they laid siege to this city. For 3 years, starvation happened before the walls collapsed. Imagine how many people died in a 3-year period inside the city of Samaria. It might also be worth our time to mention that the Assyrians were wicked, ruthless captors who had no mercy on their captives. Many people were killed in those battles. In all likelihood, the 27,290 captives that Sargon brought with him out of Samaria was probably the entire remaining living population of that city. This is a map, if you will, that depicts the northern kingdom. You will see the light blue is the kingdom of Israel. The star is the capital of Samaria, capital city Samaria. You will also notice this mauve color here is the southern portion of the kingdom. It is the kingdom of Judah, with the star capital of Israel, or Jerusalem, I'm sorry. So this gives us an idea of where we are. You will also notice in the very north part of the map, it says Assyrian Empire. That was the Assyrian Empire prior to 722 BC. Now, this map gives you an idea of what the Assyrian Empire looked like after they had taken everything but the southern kingdom of Judah. The light green, the entire light green, was all part of the Assyrian Empire during this time period. So it gives us an idea of the vast area in which Sargon, the emperor of the Assyrian Empire, held within his hand. Now, an empty land yields no taxes. The only reason that the northern kingdom of Israel had been allowed to exist for as long as it had is that prior to Sargon, the king of Israel had paid tribute to the previous administration. With the coming of Sargon as king, the king of Israel had decided he might be able to circumvent paying tribute. So he made an alliance with Egypt for protection. As you saw on the map previously, Egypt also was conquered by the Assyrian Empire. Now, in order to make his newly conquered land productive, Sargon II moved other conquered people in. He moved the Israeli people out, and he moved other people in. There's a list. We could find a list in the Bible of people he moved in, and historical documents would prove that to be true. However, these people who moved in were Gentiles. They were pagans. They did not know God at all. Now, it's in all likelihood, like Nebuchadnezzar from Babylon 136 years later, when he destroyed Judah and carried the city of Jerusalem off in the book of Daniel into captivity, in all likelihood, Sargon left some people who were deemed unworthy to be carried away. If you go to 2 Kings chapter 25, we'll read what happened in Nebuchadnezzar's time. Now, this is not the time of Sargon II, but this gives us an idea of what generally happened during this period of time when a country came in and took captive the people of a particular land. 2 Kings chapter 25, verse 11, if you'll look at that, it says, and the rest of the people who were left in the city and the deserts who had deserted to the king of Babylon, together with the rest of the multitude, Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carried into exile. But, verse 12, but the captain of the guard left some of the poorest of the land to be vine dressers and plowmen. So their approach was to leave some insignificant people to take care of things while the rest of the people were in captivity. In all likelihood, Sargon II did the same according to historians. But the vast majority of the people Sargon II brought in from other lands that he had conquered. So his mode of operation was to bring in, to mix people up, so that there was no way a particular group or dynamic of people could organize and lead a revolt against him and his empire. Now, with the introduction of the pagan people came the introduction of new idols into the land of Israel. As the Israelites adopted these new idols, this brought the wrath of God upon them. We'll see that here in 2 Kings. Let's back up to chapter 17 this time. Sargon is faced with a dilemma here. 2 Kings chapter 17, I want to read verse 27 through 28. What happened here is that the Lord sent lions into this deserted country to devour people. And they viewed this as God's wrath coming upon them, even though most of them were non-believers in Yahweh, the God of Israel. But in 2 Kings 17, verse 27, find here, it says, then the king of Assyria commanded, send one of the priests whom you carried away from there, and let him go and dwell and teach them the law of the God of the land. Okay? So one of the priests whom they had carried away from Samaria came and lived in Bethel and taught them how they should fear the Lord. Now, mind you, this is probably a priest that has been set up who's not of the lineage of Aaron. This is probably one who was set up outside of that. So the religion of God has already been diluted to a certain point. But nevertheless, this is the beginning of a return to God. So over the next several years, Samaria became a melting pot of religion. But ever so slowly they began to return to godly principles and began to, at least in some respects, resemble Old Testament Israel in their faith. Now, not only was it a melting pot of religion, but it was a melting pot of people. We might say that America is a melting pot. Well, Israel became a melting pot under the Assyrian Empire. Now let's look at the Jews. These were citizens of the southern kingdom of the tribe of Judah and of Benjamin. Now they were carried off into captivity in Babylon, but unlike the Syrian captivity that lasted for hundreds of years. In fact, they say to this day there are still Jews and Jewish descendants, not Jews, Israeli descendants throughout the region that have been mixed with other nations. But the Jews were different from their Israelite brother, okay? They were carried away into Babylon 136 years after. During this period of time, 136 years, the Samaritans, or the northern kingdom, they were still in captivity. They were still oppressed. But now Nebuchadnezzar is on the scene. He has taken over a lot of the regions of the Assyrian Empire, and he conquered Israel, or Judah, and carried off the Jews into captivity. Unlike their northern brother, the Jews repented very quickly. They saw this as a sign from God of his wrath that they were carried off into captivity and their loved ones killed.